So, first of all, each one of them will give us a short insight into their experience, into their also both personal stories, but also how that's intertwined with who they are professionally and what they are trying to bring into the world. And I'm very happy to have Maria Soledad starting today. She is operations director at ICRC for the Near and Middle East and has really been a dedicated humanitarian for more than 2 decades. And when I talked to her in preparation of this session, she said, you know, it's interesting how also in places of conflict, in war, there's still this force of preserving life and the search for tranquility and calm and peace. And I'm really looking forward to hear what you have to share with us today.
Thank you, Anaïs, and thank you for the generous introduction. Allow me to lessen a bit the tightness and say that I'm not actually the director, I'm a coordinator, but just as engaged in the Middle East. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I feel honored. Look, this crowd and the way everybody's coming together. Just listening the music a moment ago, I was looking in the room and people were just closing their eyes and going inside. So thank you very much. I remember as if it was yesterday. I was holding my mom's hand and we were running. It was raining. The water, the drops were feeling like stones. I was 11 years old. And we were actually running away from our home. My mom was carrying my little sister, 5 years old, and my older sister was trying to hold the luggage. And we had to run to catch the bus, and it was then when I almost felt the hit of a car. It missed me by a second. When we were in the bus, my mom started to hug me and to kiss me in the only way mothers can do. She was crying and she was desperate. And the only thing she could think to say was, you have a troop of angels around you. Fast forward in Ethiopia, a couple of years ago. It was the military operation and I was in Tigray. All supplies were suspended, the hospitals were not working, and there I was visiting the hospital, and I had in front of me Salam. Salam was a small girl, 8 years old, 4 operations. She had the last external fixator that the hospital had. She was crying and her mother was holding her hand. When I saw her mother, I felt this moment of eternal courage in her eyes. War is ugly, and I can tell you because I've seen it, and many times. And the impacts, we have seen it also in Sri Lanka, in Sudan, in Yemen, in many other places. And still in all those places, as Anaïs was saying, I've been able to meet the Salams, the strong ones, the courageous ones, the ones who want to drive and to keep life at the forefront. When I went back home after my mission in Ethiopia, my mom was waiting for me. She was at the airport, and she hugged me and in a very desperate way, almost as if I was 11 years old again. And I told her, no worries. The angels were with me. Courage comes from the word cœur, and we know it very well here in Geneva. It talks of heart, the way we connect to one another. So when we talk about peace as well, certainly it's in relation to ourselves, but also in relations to the others. And that's the beauty of this forum. I'm sure there will be amazing connections after. And if I could, I would multiply myself so that I could say hello to each of you. Courage keeps us together and is the most important value, in my view, and happy to be corrected, so that consistently we can continue to apply other values of love, of peace, of hope, and still think that we can make of this a world where we can live together. Not only better, but at least that we can live together and look to one another as humans. As simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sole, for your inspiring words and the courage that you actually live every day with the work that you do continuously. As next, we will hear from Ignacio. Ignacio, who's also on a journey of actually living hope and bringing also tangible actions into the world to move towards peace. And I'm much looking forward also to your story and what you have to say.
Thank you, Anaïs, and thank you all. I put my ladder against a wall. I was 24, graduated from business school, and I started to climb. I was working in finance and in banking. And then I decided that that wasn't the right ladder I was on, and I moved it. And then I entered in the same space as Maria Soledad, the humanitarian space. So from one day to another, I put my ladder elsewhere and went to work with Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, in a very remote place, and then in war-torn situations, as that's what we do, in Liberia and Sierra Leone, and then it kept on. 10 years ago, I was in the Valley of Consolation, which is 180 kilometers away here from Geneva. I didn't quite understand how I got there, and actually we were talking about how do we get to places, no? I didn't really know why I was there. I mean, there was an osho, there was an imam, there was a rabbi, there was a priest, there was a traditional chief from the Amazon, all people who were guardian of the norms of religion. And then there were a series of people, more the scientists, to talk about the environment. And then a few others, like me, wondering, wow, this is interesting. We were only a group of 20, and we were there for 5 days. After 2 days, I felt terribly depressed. The scientists were showing us, this was 10 years before, we don't have to wait for the IPCC reports. We're heading straight against the wall. This is the end. Goodbye, ciao, finished, and game over. And I said, wait, where is hope? And then I found hope in the religious leaders, who I found they were almost completely zen. I said, but do you hear what the scientists are saying? You know? I said, and I'm in the middle there, not knowing where do I find myself. I came out of those 5 days deciding on one clear thing. Never again am I going to be a cynical. And I'm going to put all my efforts on the hope. And that's the only journey we can have, confronted to the situation, the global situation in which we're heading for. And then, a bit more than a year ago, while I was moving out of the job I had in the humanitarian sector, and I had worked for so many decades on the what we do, it's also how you find an organization. I found initiatives of change that works on the how you do things, and much more on the how things happen, how you do things. And to be able to enter into this space of much more moving from what to how, and then it happens also that this 80-year-old organization has an incredible center for dialogue and so on. And I feel really lifted in my life and in my journey that continues. So from the 24-year-old who didn't really want to make money but was excited about having a beautiful suit I find myself in a far different journey 35 years later. Life is long, but I'm going to die. I don't know about you, but I'm going to die, and until my last breath, I'm going to be in a positive attitude, even if whatever we see can bring us to a negative.
Thank you for bringing in this positivity and this also hope and actually commitment to never be cynical again. Next, we will have Daniel, who will talk to us, bringing in the perspective of youth and talking to us also that there are different possible futures and that it's up to us to decide what kind of future do we want to bring into the world. So Daniel, the stage is yours.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear madams and sirs, thank you for this great opportunity to speak to you. Thanks for having me. As a young member of the human family, I would like to point out for you the intrinsic perspectives of children and especially my young generation on the topic of peace. So for every child, for every baby, and of course for all teenagers, growing up in peace is absolutely essential, because only peace guarantees for humanity and especially the young ones to develop our talents and imprinted gifts to the highest possible level, so we can follow our destiny and build bridges of love and empathy to one another. And I mean, that's the true reason why we are all here, why we incarnated as eternal souls on this planet, to experience love and find out our inner truth in coexistence to all life forms, to become in a way honest and warm-hearted adults. And that's the mission. All those who love their children create peace. And please remember, each and every one of you was once a child, a fragile baby full of love, a sunshine in the arms of your parents. Of course, that was before all this manipulation began, and educational patterns, social norms and dogmas, or religious separation began to divide us into good or bad, rich or poor, beautiful or ugly, right or wrong, friend or foe. When we were children, we all played together in harmony and in peace. Nowadays, as adults, we suddenly begin to face insurmountable borders. And that's because our minds and our feelings are manipulated. And the war is always the highest form of this manipulation. Whether it's a civil war, a hot or a cold war, a religious or an economic one. Finally, when we humans are fighting against each other, we have always been guided to deny our inner beauty, our love and our connectedness. We ignore freedom and self-determination and disconnect from our heart power. And in a, you can say, blind obedience, we start again to destroy everything inside us, what makes us humans in the first place. Our brotherhood, our compassion, our common roots and our karma, our spiritual well-being, and finally, the peaceful future for our children. I mean, what a failure of our inner divinity and greatness, our glory and generosity to bring out the good in us and lead this world with our hearts. I mean, for every young person, it's an absolutely shocking moment when you realize that the adults we are looking up to, we are supposed to learn from, we're not able or willing to find a better solution than to fight against each other and to establish a reality of propaganda and armed violence for their beloved children, instead of singing for them the song of love daily in joy and confidence? Now, the most important question for me as a very young citizen is, will the following generation, will the children and teenagers of today, will they continue this mindset, and will there be war in 10, 20, 50 or 100 years? Or will they use the opportunity, together or individually, each for himself, to go the peaceful path of joy in coexistence and respect? Because therefore, we children, we need your help now. We live in a connected age, a connected world of tablets, smartphones, and computers. We are virtually online almost 24/7, but we have in the same instance forgotten to listen to our hearts and to the network of life. Our connectedness to nature and the connectedness of all life forms in the great togetherness, the network of loving hearts, as I like to call it. We have forced ourselves to connect into the internet, but in the same instance, we have disconnected from Mother Earth and our fellow humans beside us. I mean, we are on Soph. We are one light. We are breathing the same air, and we are coming from the same source. In a way, we all have the same Father. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not some lofty, esoteric blah blah. That is simplest, hard fact science. So for those of us who still have enemies, you're just living separated. Those of us who still think in competition, you're just afraid of not being enough. The concept of the enemy in our fellow humans is a terrible invention based on a pure lack of consciousness. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, as if the leaf on a tree could be separated from the other leaves on the same tree and is not trying in a constant fear and competition to rule the other leaves. I mean, what a ridiculous belief. We young people, we need now fellow humans and teachers of light and wisdom again. An environment that tells us about the wonders of life and the fascination of creation. Our inner beauty and our uniqueness that each of us carries within and that is just waiting to be lived. We young people, we need masters and teachers who teach us the connectedness of our hearts and the eternal love and educate us to be independent and free people, aware of our common source and individual task, respecting creation, respecting nature, and bringing in a way body, mind, and soul into harmony. The knowledge for this has long been available. I mean, we are such beautiful, beautiful beings. What terrible things must happen that we are not able to recognize ourselves in the others, that we begin to torture animals and destroy nature. So, Ladies and gentlemen, let us become ambassadors, each and every one of you. People like you and me, politicians, teachers, university professors, entrepreneurs. We all must return from our minds to our hearts. And we must return to think with our hearts and make the important decisions with our hearts. We have to speak out more about our feelings and the wonders of life and nature. We cannot hide forever behind clever analysis and factual arguments. War is something that always begins in our minds, and it can only be ended in our minds. But lasting peace for all creation is something that begins in our hearts. A science disconnected from our hearts is useless. It's totally useless because it's only cold and mind-based. And believe me, the mind can be influenced with ease, the heart not. So we must start to invest again in education of the heart, in kindness and in music, in the expression of feelings. Enable the young generation a holistic education in freedom and in self-reflection and an intrinsic potential development. All this cannot succeed in a time of fear and a growing desire of control, because only freedom makes decisions from our heart possible. Ladies and gentlemen, we children, we are your future. And of all your actions on earth, only the smiles or the tears of your children will remain. So now, let us dry the tears and let us see the world again through the shiny eyes of beloved children. And let's shape a new era of love and kindness. Peace is the foundation for this. Peace among us humans and peace among all life forms. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel, for bringing in the voice or a voice of children and youth. Daniel himself is only just 16 years of age. And I would like to hear from Maria Soledad, how did that actually make you feel, what you heard from Ignacio and Daniel?
Thank you very much, Anaïs. Daniel, thank you so much. That was amazing. When you were talking, I thought of an African saying. It's a bit colloquial, but I'll say it. Be careful of a person naked who offers you a shirt. You were talking a lot about inner peace, self-reflection, and taking care of ourselves so that we can serve the others. Thank you for that. And I also hear something when you're speaking about the horrors of war, the impact of violence, and the suffering of people. And again, there's another saying that says, which I believe very much, I am a human being. Nothing human can be alien to me. When we understand that the person in the prison, the person who is carrying the rifle, or the person who is acting for peace is just as human. So understanding each other is an essence of what you were saying. I am a human being. Nothing human can be alien to me. We worked in many places, as well in Liberia, as well in some of others that you mentioned. MSF was also present. And I remember the days when I worked also in Liberia, and it was Ebola. And Ebola, as you know, is transmitted by fluids. So at the time, it was a similar period where people could die immediately by touching the other person. So violence is not only about the bombs and the rifles and the strikes. Violence is manifested in different ways. We live that all together. 2019 is a reference year for the humanity, just as Ebola was. So the manifestation of violence are so immense and so different that's why it's so important that we come out together with our backgrounds, our experiences, our understandings of life, and our perspectives of it, so that we can address those differences of violences. It resonated a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And Ignacio, maybe you can also share what resonated with you, and then also maybe what are possibly both individual or also collective practices to cultivate peace.
All that in 120 seconds, right? So, thank you, Daniel, and thank you, Maria Soledad. What I wanted to add, and I think it continues with what Maria said, peace is not the absence of war. And you gave the example of Ebola. I think we can bring that example also to our different communities. So, working on peace is not the thing which is far away in Liberia or in Sierra Leone. It's at home. And it's within us. Because if the world doesn't become more spiritual, we're just fucked up. Yeah? Then it was interesting, Kavaila, that you were talking about the Sustainable Development Goals when we started. And I agree so much with Daniel, so much of data and the talks and the promises that us adults we continue making. I was at the UN General Assembly in September for the Sustainable Development Goals Summit, where it was looking back after 7 years on the achievements. Just terrible, 164 indicators, we can only measure 140, of which 50% are off track and 30% are even regressing. The rights of women, for instance, regression. So the reasons, and to accelerate that, the conclusion of the summit was, we need more commitments. So more adults to take commitments for the future generations. We need more money, so we're going to indebt a little bit more the future generations. And we need more partnerships. Yeah, okay, but there's something missing there. And that's the blind spot that we have. And that blind spot is around the inner development. We have the capacity, with complex issues, global issues, to think on how to resolve them in technical ways. Daniel, you're so right around that. And then we come up with what we can measure, indicators, and so on. What we lack is also to put on the table that accelerator to leave no one behind, which is far from what we're doing. And that means also putting more attention to the skills and the qualities that we all need, not only the leaders, that we all need to be able to go towards that dream of the Sustainable Development Goals. And then, I don't know if Chris is in the room, but he heads the IDG Lemanic, there you are, Chris, hi. The IDG Lemanic Hub. So the IDGs, the Inner Development Goals, is one of the accelerators that Chris and many others are pushing. It's a great framework. I often have it in my pocket because I work a lot with the permanent missions in Geneva and so on, the UN agencies, to try and get them into the space that we're talking about. And this type of discussion with a tool like this, a framework like the Inner Development Goals is a fantastic tool. And it does include what we're all talking about. It's just that it's a language where we can try and bring other people into the conversation. And you said you wanted something practical. You're going to think I'm a bit of a salesperson, but and I think Chris is also coming to in 2 weeks' time. We have in Caux, so above Montreux, in this center for dialogue, which is a former Belle Epoque hotel with 220 rooms, but the main thing is the energy you have there. And I've met a few people, Alexandra also. You have been there also. Several people have been there. You never forget when you go up there. The energy is completely different, and it's a place for reconciliation. And it's a place where, from the 9th to the 13th of July, we would have our first forum there to practice, to implement this. So not to get out of this is a framework, this is 23 skills and so on, but to practice it. And with the IDG Foundation, we'll be going on year after year to be able to do that, because it's to bring more people into the space. That was a bit long, eh?
But a wonderful invitation to all of us to attend the Caux IDG Summit. So to round up, Daniel, some last words from your end.
Some last words to the audience and also to you. I think war is something that occurs out of a disharmony, out of something that went out of a natural order. And music is the manifestation of natural order. Where they play music, where orchestras are coming together and play, there's no war. Because it's not possible that there's music in the matrix and then people are committing crimes and are fighting against each other. So if we can invest more into music, into kindness and into the expression of our feelings, I think peace is not a dream. It's something that we can achieve together in near time. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's beautiful if you can sit here for a moment when you get your presents. And with that, we close for now, and there will be more music soon to come.
Thank you so much again to all of you, to Maria, to Ignacio, to Daniel, and also to you, Anaïs, for your wonderful hosting and moderation of today's panel discussion. Thank you so much.